The front brakes on the W204 have a floating or sliding caliper, yellow arrow. This means the caliper is attached to the mount by sliding bolts, red arrows, and has only one piston on one side of the caliper, green arrow. As pressure is applied to the pads by the caliper piston, the caliper slides or floats along the slide bolts to transfer the clamping force to both the piston pad and the pad on the other side. To change out the pads, begin by removing the brake pad wear sensor from the holder on the right side of the caliper, red arrow, and by pulling it straight out, and then remove it from the pad, yellow arrow. You should be able to pull it from the pad by hand, but if it is stuck, use a set of small needle nose pliers to remove it, using care if you're planning on reusing the sensor. If you are changing your pads before the wear sensor has activated, there is no reason why you cannot reuse it, but if it is worn down, you should replace it. Next, use a large flathead screwdriver and a set of pliers to remove the pad retention spring, red arrow. Grasp the spring with the pliers to save it from flying off. The spring is under a fair amount of tension, so you do not want it flying off the caliper. And as always, you should be wearing safety glasses. With a good hold on the spring, use the screwdriver to pry the spring off, walking it outwards until it is free from the caliper. Use a 13mm socket and remove the 2 slide bolts, red arrows. Your new brake pad set should include 4 new bolts, 2 for each side. The slide bolts are single-use only and are micro-encapsulated from the factory. Always replace the braking hardware when servicing your brakes. Depending on how worn your rotors and pads are, you will need to compress the piston back into the caliper. Use a large flathead screwdriver and place it between the caliper and the rotor and push the caliper outwards, red arrow. This will force the piston back in. Never place the screwdriver around the piston as you can damage it or the rubber boot. While you are pushing the piston back in, you will be forcing brake fluid back into the system and up into the reservoir. Make sure to check the fluid level in the reservoir as you do this, and be prepared to remove some fluid as needed. Now you can remove the caliper from the mount. Be prepared to hang the caliper or place it on something at the height that will not put any stress on the brake hose or line. Never let the caliper hang from the brake line. You will need to push the piston all the way back into the caliper to install new pads. Before you remove the old pad, use a large C-clamp and compress the piston all the way in, remembering to check the fluid level in the reservoir. The pad on the piston side will come with a metal clip that holds it in position in the caliper and piston. Pull the old pad out and press the new pad in. The pads will be marked F for front and R and L for right and left. The outside pad will come with an anti-squeal pad on the back. This is just a sticky material that helps hold the pad in place and prevents squeals. Push the old pad off the caliper, clean up any residue from the old backing, and install the new pad. Installation is the reverse of removal. Once everything is back together, pump the brake pedal a few times to move the pads into position against the rotor. Always follow the break-in instructions that will come with your new pads. New pads need to be broken in properly and will have diminished braking capabilities until they are. Thanks for watching. Click here to view the original article along with hundreds of other DIY content for your car.